Okay, now that we've completed installation, your screen should look similar to this one, where you should have an icon, a little blue square that says DVR at the bottom. That's your icon that will allow you to launch the DVR software. So we're going to go ahead and double click this. Before we do this though, in some instances you won't see this on the desktop. If for some reason you completed the installation and you do not see this icon on your desktop, it can be accessed by going to the start button in the lower left and going to all programs and then DVR and then clicking it there. So normally you will get a quick launch icon on the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and double click that and the software will launch. And basically I'm just going to do a quick overview of what all the buttons represent on the main screen of the DVR software. These over here are start and stop buttons that represent each one of the cameras that you have connected. So right now, let's say I want it to start, I want to start recording the footage streaming in through camera 1. I would just click that and you see a window pops up asking for a username and password. By default, both of these fields are blank. So whenever you're trying to edit or change anything in the DVR software, you may get this window. And until you actually assign a username and password to the software, or the current user, and we'll explain that later, but initially these two fields are left blank and you just click OK and then you'll have access. And you see this just turned green. This indicates that I just manually started recording camera 1. If I click it again, it's going to turn back to suppose that's a blue color. It's going to turn back to the color blue, which means that it is not recording. So just keep in mind in the future, if you ever run into any issues, if you don't know if the system is recording or not, or if a particular camera is problematic, if you go back to the main screen, if you want to determine whether or not a camera is recording or not, you'll know if the button representing that particular camera is green. If it's green, it's recording. If it's this bluish color, then it is not recording. This button here, all, if you click this, it will start recording all the cameras that you have connected. I have a 4-channel card, so the only channels that turn green are the 4 that are connected to my DVR card, that represent the channels on my DVR card. So if I click it again, it goes back to a non-recording state. Underneath here is a section for the PTZ controls. A PTZ camera, PTZ stands for pan, tilt, zoom, and a PTZ camera allows you to use these buttons here to adjust the pan, the tilt, and the zoom of your PTZ camera. These won't work until you have set up set the PTZ camera up in the software, and there's a section in the tutorial series that explains how to set up your PTZ camera if you have one. If you don't have a PTZ camera connected to your DVR, then this section here you really don't need to concern yourself with, because these won't affect any of your cameras unless they're PTZ cameras. This button here, this is the exit button. If you click that, you'll essentially quit out of the software. This button here allows you to minimize the software. See, right now it's still running. It's just minimized. So it's still, if you had it set up to record or whatever, it's still doing that. It's just been minimized. So if you go back down here to your taskbar, you can click it and it will maximize the software so that it fills the screen. Over here, where this little question mark is, that launches the help file, which is essentially the manual for the software. So if you click it, pops up like that, and you can access, the different sections that you may need to access. If maybe you've forgotten how to do something, you just click that question mark and it'll launch it. And this little magnifying glass here, that takes you to the playback screen. And this is where you would actually look at old footage that you've recorded to maybe review and see if an incident occurred or something of that nature. There's a section on the playback screen that explains all the different features here. To get back to the main screen after you've gone to the playback screen, you click this button here that kind of looks like a power button, and that will take you back to the main screen. This hammer here is the configuration button. If you click that, it takes you to a screen where you can configure all the different features of the DVR software. This is where you would set up motion recording, you'd add different accounts. There's a section for adjusting video, for recording, for adding user accounts, for networking. There's a section that allows you to determine whether or not the DVR software launches whenever the computer is booted on, and whether or not it shuts down, whether or not Windows shuts down whenever the DVR software is shut down. Storage, that's how you choose where you're going to record to. PTZ, this is the screen where you make adjustments. If you have a PTZ camera, this is where you would set it up. There's a adjust color tab where you adjust color for the different cameras, and this is the motion detect screen. While we're here, and actually we won't go into storage right now. We'll address that in a different section. So I'm going to click OK, and that's going to take us back to the main screen. Okay, there we go. It just took a moment. Okay, so that's the configuration button. Lock allows you to, let's say you clicked on one of the buttons and the window came up asking for your username and password, and then you entered it. Essentially, if you get up and walk away and someone else sits down, they'll have access to all those things that are normally password protected. So if you've already entered your username and password and you're about to walk away and you don't want to quit out of the software, you want it to continue doing whatever it is you set it up to do, you would click that lock button. If someone else walks up and they want to configure the system, now it's locked again. So unless they have a username and password, they won't have access to the configuration. Over here are the different screen modes. Depending on the number of cameras you have, you'll have access to different screen modes. I only have a 4-channel card, so the only screen mode that's available to me right now is the first one, which is 4 screens. You can go, if you have a different card, let's say you had a 16-channel card, you could set up your 16-channel card so that only 4 screens show at a time. If you have a 32-channel card, you can set it up so only 4 screens set up at a time. The reason that this is significant is because when you have a system like a 32-channel system, you may not want all 32 channels to show up on this screen, because obviously the more channels you have on screen, the smaller each screen is going to be. And a lot of users may feel that the screens are too small. So in those situations, let's say you had a 16-channel card, you could click on the 4-channel screen mode here, and the system will allow you to rotate through 4 sets of screens in a loop. So essentially what would happen is you see cameras 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then for a specified number of seconds, that would be on the screen. Then it would jump to camera 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be on the screen for the specified number of seconds. And we'll explain more on how to set up that feature. But you can rotate through screens if you don't want to use up all the screen real estate that's necessary for a card that has more channels on it. The basic number here is going to be 4, though. You can't go lower than 4. Although if you're in this screen and you want to enlarge one of the screens that's currently running, you can double click on it. For instance, right now I just selected camera number 2 and I double click. Well, it's not going to do it there because I don't have video coming in. But I just double clicked camera 1 and now it enlarged. And then to get back You just double click again and it takes you to the regular screen. And that's it for this portion of the tutorial. I just wanted to go over the different buttons and everything on the main screen so that you understand what I'm referring to in all the subsequent tutorial videos. Okay, now that we've completed installation, your screen should look similar to this one, where you should have an icon, a little blue square that says DVR at the bottom. That's your icon that will allow you to launch the DVR software. So we're going to go ahead and double click this. Before we do this though, in some instances you won't see this on the desktop. If for some reason you completed the installation and you do not see this icon on your desktop, it can be accessed by going to the start button in the lower left and going to all programs and then DVR and then clicking it there. So normally you will get a quick launch icon on the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and double click that and the software will launch. And basically